All right, everybody. Hey, welcome back. David Carr here of Steward Your Business. We're picking up, for those of you that have been following along our conversations, we've got a new guest here tonight with us, and we're going to continue on our discussion related to leadership. We've been talking about that a bit. How do we know, and what are our belief systems? We've talked about that in the past with Doc C here. Just before we get started, we'll do a little introduction, and we'll have Stacy leading our conversation tonight, which is great. But my name again is David Carr with Steward Your Business. I focus on helping business owners, their teams, even individuals in overall organizational health, in team engagement. And we talked about knowing ourselves to lead ourselves, which is going to be part of the discussion that Stacy's leading. So what we'll do is we'll go around with Bill and Doc C, and then come back to Stacy. And Stacy, you can introduce yourself and kick us off tonight. So Bill, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself to the audience, that'd be great.
Sure. Well, my name is Bill Hatch. I am a podcaster and leadership guide is what I call myself when I'm doing that job. Basically, I help people become better leaders.
Great. Thanks, Bill. All right, Doc C, you're up.
Curtis Cochran here. We are in the mergers and acquisitions arena, but mostly we developed a system. It's called the E4 Math Philosophy System, which is the 4 cycles of business ownership. And we've kind of been working with this system for 30 years, taking businesses from good to great to eventually exiting their business. And that's what we do.
Awesome.
Glad to be here,
Thanks.
by the way. Thank you.
Yes, we're glad to have back with you, Curtis. And then Stacy, go ahead. We'll let you
Yes,
introduce yourself.
thank you, David. So pleasure being with all of you as well. I am a business resource specialist, and you wonder what is it I do? I work with business owners on 2 strategies of their business. One is their workforce concerns, and the other is their cash flow. And so my goal is to help the business owner create a culture that their employees love working for them. And one way that I do that is to bring in employee benefits and employee programs. As a benefits broker, I can also bring in, group medical as well as other types of employee programs that fit the needs and the budget of the different businesses. As far as their cash flow, I look for companies to see if they qualify for state and federal tax incentives, tax credits. It could be the R&D tax credits, could be the ERC tax credits, and other tax credits that they may not be familiar with. So again, is to put them in a strategic position to be able to compete with the big dogs. So that's pretty much what I do.
Yeah. So just why we created this space, and for those that you're tuning in, checking us out here, is really to help the business owner. We're all small business owners. We've learned from each other. We want to help each other, bring value there. And so we hope that this conversation we're going to have tonight about knowing ourselves to lead ourselves, and Stacey's got specific guidance and questions she's going to be asking. We hope that brings value, and we want you to ask questions. Feel free to leave comments here for us. Yes, enjoy the time here. So Stacy, I'm going to hand it back to you so you can lead us and guide us through some of these questions and thoughts today is how we can be better business owners ourselves.
Okay, I appreciate that. One of the biggest topics that we keep bringing that keeps coming up is about leadership. And I think that to be able to be an effective, impactful leader, you have to know thyself. And so, when people ask, what does it mean to know thyself? I'm going to read to you what the definition that I found. So what is the meaning of know thyself? It's the principal meaning of the phrase in its origin. Original application was to know your limits, either in the sense of knowing the extent of one's abilities, knowing one's place in social scale, or knowing oneself to be mortal. And even though that can apply to just your ordinary life, it definitely can apply to leadership. So I would like to hear when you hear that phrase, know thyself, what resonates with you? What comes to mind to you as a leader? I'm going to start with Doc C. Did we lose Bill?
Yeah. We just lost. We'll get him back in here. We'll keep going.
You'll keep going, but that's a great question. And I always bring that back to your comfort zone because we actually grow when we're uncomfortable. That's when our greatest growth is, and a lot of the times, most of us, all of us really, we're we're afraid to grow. We really are. I mean, there's a fear factor that's in there. So I always to know thyself is such a difficult question because if you expand your comfort zone, if you get out of your comfort zone, you're actually discovering more and more and more about yourself. It's really I mean, do we really know ourselves? I mean, that's really the $1 million question. And if we don't even know ourselves, can you imagine trying to run a business or even being married and being a father or a mother, and the list goes on and on, like you said, Stacy. So I just think that when it comes to that question, know thyself, I think that we're continuing to grow because you're jumping out of your comfort zones, and especially if you're an entrepreneur, as the people are listening to this and the four of us are on here, you're always
Mhm.
you're always jumping out of your comfort zone.
No, you're so right, and I think that that's important for people to know. And as you said, just that we're constantly evolving, we're constantly growing. We know as entrepreneurs that entrepreneurship requires you to constantly be in a growing state, a growing position. So you to know thyself, do you ever really know yourself? And that's what I'm hearing you saying, is that it's a constant ongoing process to be able to basically discover who you are. And so I like that. I think that's a great way to put that. How about you, Bill? When you hear the word know thyself, the phrase know thyself, what comes to mind to you? Can you hear me,
Let's see.
Bill?
No ancient
Oh, there he goes. You're coming in. There we go, Bill.
philosophies and whatnot aside. Okay, you can hear me now. Yeah,
We can hear you.
my connection's a little unstable. I do apologize for that. Okay. Ancient philosophies aside, I really kind of agree with Doc C that really it's a daily thing that because we are different today than we are yesterday, and from what we will be tomorrow, or at least we should be. That if we're in a growth phase, then we really need to relearn who we are. It is uncomfortable, but growth comes in places of discomfort, and so yeah, yeah, it's an ongoing quest to study and know ourselves.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Thank you. Now, how about you, David? What resonates
Well,
with you? What comes
I
to mind?
think just one of the things you said in the definition, Stacy, was kind of like limits or boundaries about knowing ourselves. And so I want to kind of go off of that for a minute and just thinking about um, we have self limiting beliefs at times and boundaries that we put in ourselves because either the world has said that or we've just taken it upon ourselves, and so then we start to become somebody that really isn't who we are. And so I think it's important, like that you guys both were talking about, like exploring where these boundaries are, in is that, does that make sense, does that fit with me, or maybe not. And sometimes we also, I find we grow or we think we have to go in certain areas and it's not in our best interest. So knowing ourselves means where should I focus in on, where am I actually the strongest about growing. And sometimes, like Doc, you brought up some of the challenge of like our comfort zone. There's a difference between our comfort zone versus, I would say, focusing on like our weaknesses. There's a nuance there that I think it's important to focus on our strengths. As we know them and understand them, we'll do much better in that way. Now that means it's weird, but with knowing ourselves in different levels of these things, we're like, well, how am I going to act at that, or how am I going to respond? Typically, it's actually interesting as we know more about ourselves, we can then more quickly elevate, like you're saying, Doxy, to go to those areas like, well, I've never done this before. I've never managed this, but I've done it at a certain level. And it's a way of being, like you said, built daily. So I think it's important that we test the boundaries of the limits, like you said, Stacy, in knowing ourselves and seeing, okay, is that right for me or not? And if we don't test it, if we don't go there, it's hard to validate whether that is who we are or
Right,
not.
right.
So that's what I kind of like hear you say is, are we going and testing those limits or boundaries?
And I think that's important because, again, the only way to know yourself is to test those limits and boundaries. How do you discover what you are really made of, or what, who you are as a person, and what you can withstand and what value you can bring unless you test those boundaries? So that's what I'm hearing all of us say, is that you've got to, it's an ongoing process, that it's continuous growth, it's continually getting out of our comfort zone. One of the things that I read was that, what does it mean to know yourself? And I'm going to just break down the different areas, and we're going to talk about those areas and how it can relate to leadership and knowing thyself. So one of the ways you can know yourself is by learning your likes and dislikes. So how can that relate to you as knowing yourself, knowing thyself as a leader, by understanding what your likes and dislikes are? Anybody? I want to go with who wants to go first?
Well,
The Braves.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
I think an important question to ask would be why? Why do I like this and dislike that? One of the big things in life, of course, right now is the algorithm of whatever social media you use, like YouTube or whatnot. And, the algorithm will actually show you more of the same. So you never really get exposed to anything new once the algorithm kicks in and starts showing, because it's like, okay, you like this. This is like that. So we'll give you this. And I think we need to explore why we like this and not that, because if we don't know why, then it may just be we don't like this certain thing because that's what the algorithm's been showing us.
So Bill, what I'm hearing you saying, as far as, are you talking more with it,
as opposed?
Are you talking in relation to social media, or your likes and dislikes related to what area of business or leadership are you referring to?
I'm just using social media as an example.
Okay.
I'm just using that as an example of how you can get a like or dislike. It goes throughout life. There's, you like peas and carrots, so you never try asparagus or Brussels sprouts. So, I don't like Brussels sprouts. Well, you've never actually tried Brussels sprouts. So, why is it you don't like it?
Is
it because you were told you didn't?
We're losing.
I was just going to add to that.
Is it because you actually don't like it? Like one thing as opposed to the other?
I'll just chime in, and I think Curtis has got something there too.
Go ahead,
Stacey. Just along why you don't like something or why do you like something. I think for men in particular, men leaders, and one I think is, can we identify, somebody says I like something or I love something, that can you go deeper with that? Like he's asking Bill, I think you're asking a good question, Bill, but why, what emotionally triggers me? Can you actually name that? Or what, on the same token, what you don't like? I think that there's in leadership, you may have heard of like emotional intelligence, right? This idea of tapping into emotions and understanding them at a deep level. I, as a man, I just turned 50 yesterday, so
Congratulations and happy birthday.
Thank you. I didn't, in society, in the way we grow up in certain things, we talk about know thyself. There's limitations on how we show up and how we express emotions and understand what we can like, the passions that we can show, or we have to hold back right? Suppress certain things. And so I would say as a leader, I really like your question, Bill. Why do we like it? What's the story? What's behind it? And there's oftentimes emotions and things. We're Doxy, you've talked a lot about this. We're emotional creatures. We buy on emotion, not logic, right? And so that's where it starts, anyways. And so I just would, put out there that if you don't know your emotions, if you can't name them very clearly about why you like something or you don't like something, then I would encourage you to discover that and go deep on that. So, Curtis, I want you to chime in because I know you have some input, but that's just
I like.
Bill spurred that in me.
I liked what Bill was the direction he was going with that, and that is, we're pattern seekers,
Mm-hmm.
and we can't get away from it. And I think what Bill was actually going to is that if I don't like spinach, why am I not trying spinach? Just because of my patterns that I grew up with. That's why it's essential to be a great leader is to surround yourself with people to get you out of your patterns.
Right.
Because that's exactly what we do, our likes or dislikes, whatever you want to call it. And what happens is our patterns, for whatever reason, get ourselves into trouble,
Mm-hmm.
or they do not. But it's these patterns that we not only look at, and then when we look at the world, we are looking for what? Our patterns. When
Right.
in fact, the world is unbelievable. There's so many things out there that we just are blind to it because of our own patterns. And so I love this question because the likes and dislikes. I don't even know if we really dislike something because maybe it doesn't fit in our patterns.
Right.
And that's what's so fascinating to me is that, and that's why I like M&O. That's why I like being on these conference calls, because you guys make me think of outside of my own patterns, and that's the best thing. That's why I always say that if you don't ever be afraid of someone that has a 1,000 books in their library. Don't be afraid of them. Be afraid of the one person that has just one book that think it's the best book and they've never read it. That right there is true because of our own patterns. That's just my 2 cents. But I like what Bill was talking about.
I do too. So it's interesting when we talk about likes and dislikes, and I'm just going to tie it all in that a lot of times we surround ourselves with people and systems and patterns that we like. And again, we know that entrepreneurship is about stretching us. And I think understanding your likes and your dislikes and understanding what your patterns are is the first key to understanding yourself and your need to get out of your patterns, because that's what's holding you back. If you surround yourself with the same people that are just like you and think like you, or you just keep doing, what is that, the word insanity, doing the same thing
Yeah.
and expecting the same
Over and over
results.
again. Yeah.
And just because you like something or you dislike something, now you're stuck as a person. Your personal growth, your professional growth is stuck. So thank you, Bill, for sharing that, because you're right. Like, go ahead and eat the spinach. I don't care if you like it. At least you know what it tastes like, and you can say that you get a taste of it. You're able to identify it. But if spinach is needed to be in the mix for the salad to taste good, look, at least you know that it's needed. So I appreciate those point of views. Another area of knowing thyself is unearthing your beliefs and your values. And I know Doc C has talked about that, beliefs, and how beliefs and values are important to understanding yourself as a leader, as well as just making an impact in your organization. So, Doc C, you want to talk about that or review
Sure.
that?
Well, I've always talked to. I love this idea of beliefs because what we believe. I mean, I've always asked this question to my clients, to people all the time: what you believe and why. And the reason why I ask those questions is because I want to know that your belief is your evidence behind your belief is somewhat objective that we all can understand and appreciate. I mean, if I believe that I have a 10-pound diamond in my backyard, and I told you guys I have a 10-pound diamond in my backyard, would you believe me? I mean, that's a very good question. Whether or not I doubt if you would believe me, but see, in my mind, I'm saying that I have a diamond in my backyard. I can dig it up. It's 10 pounds and it's worth millions. And whether or not you see that right there is an example of what I'm talking about belief. Is that, do you have evidence to support what you are that you believe in? So when you are a leader, if I know that we make decisions sometimes irrationally, but then most of the time emotionally, rather, as well. But what I'm looking for when I'm looking at companies and I'm moving them from point A to point B, I want evidence as to why we need to do X, Y, or Z. And so when I talk about beliefs, I want to see what evidence you have to support the belief and whether or not it's true. That's what I want to know, if it's true. I don't want to know that that you believe that there's fairies up on the moon. Where's your evidence? I mean, I just threw that out there, but that's when I talk about belief. I'd like to hear what you have to say about your belief, but I want to know the evidence that you have to support your belief.
Okay.
Hey, Curtis, can I ask Curtis a follow-up question? I think this is important, Curtis, even for the work that you do, because you work with business owners that they believe their business is worth a lot more money probably than it is, right?
Correct.
And so they have a belief that, again, this is about knowing themselves and this idea. And the purpose of bringing somebody like you, Doxy, in is that they're blind, or they have misread this. They need somebody to come in because they don't. We earlier talked about limitations or knowing, right? Limitations and boundaries. So there may be a place where they just don't have. They can't see it. They can't see the pattern. They can't understand it. But so then, Doxy just asked you the question when you come in, because you asked this belief question. How do you handle it when you have somebody that's you can see their belief system is not serving them? Like they believe this is who they are. It's not serving who they are right now. How do you interact with that?
That's a great question, and I have that all the time, because it's an emotional belief that they'll tell me that their company is worth, well, it's worth, based on my numbers, it's worth 1.5 million. They say, well, I think it's worth 3 million. And see, what happens there is that's just emotional. It's really hope that's not. They have no evidence to support that hope or belief.
Right.
And that's what a buyer is going to come in there, and they're going to tear that belief apart. They're just going to knock it down. Everything about it, from front door to back door. That's exactly what they'll do. And that's why when I ask an owner what they believe, I ask them, the second question is, okay, do you have evidence to support what you think it's worth? And believe it or not, 99% of the time they don't, because it's an emotional response to my question. And I get that. I dig deeper into that situation, and I find that it's really worth 75% of what they even say. I mean, I'm just throwing that number out there.
Yeah, no, but it's a gap. There's a big gap there.
It's a big gap. It's a huge gap. But and I'll tell you, when I love this, because if you sit and listen to people in conversations, you'll actually hear these same beliefs that are stated without any kind of evidence.
Okay.
If you know what I mean.
But let me ask you another question. So we're looking at in the situation where you are trying to determine or calculate the value of a business. You basically, I'm hearing you need the facts to be able to prove to back up your belief. But let's bring it back to beliefs and values. So a company decides that they want to come up with a value statement, or their what do you call that? Your value
mission statement.
Mission statement. Okay, so what I see is that, are there times when you don't need exactly proof or evidence to express your beliefs and your values? Because a value statement, or your what do you call it? What was the
Mission,
word again?
your
Commission. Thank you. I
mission.
don't know why I'm getting stuck here. Your mission statement has to do with your beliefs and your values. They may not be tangible, but that is the vision that you see and the culture that you see within your own company. So is there a proper place to bring in beliefs and values that are not necessarily tangible, but that you want manifested inside your business? And that's I mean, at least that's, will that give you direction to build a business culture without having actual evidence? I guess I'm asking, there are times when you do need tangible evidence, and other times it could just be a value system that you want to, you know, the direction I'm going with
Yeah,
this. So who wants to stab at that?
Yeah. Go
well,
ahead,
I'll
Curtis.
jump
You
on
jump
this.
in first.
Yeah, I'll jump in, and then you. Well, you hit it right on the head, and that is, you're talking about business culture. See now, those are your values, and your culture, and that's why we talk about, at least what I instruct and I help business owners. You have to develop systems. You must have systems, and I'm sure Bill could talk about this too. Is you have to have systems, but within those systems, you have people, and you have pattern seeking people, you have emotional, people, and so they have to go in and out of these systems that you develop. Now that's your culture. And when it comes to actually selling a business that has 50, 60, 100 employees, you have to look at that culture, and that is a thing that you have to measure, and it is measurable. Okay, but what you said, Stacy, is absolutely correct, is that those are values that are connected into the culture, but behind those are systems that are P&Ls, profit and loss statements. There's the numbers. The numbers are driven by that culture, but really it's driven by the system, because if you don't play within the system, you're not going to be working there very long, for sure.
You know, it amazes me how the word system comes up on every single conversation that we have.
It,
It is so important that a lot of business owners really need to revisit that as part of their business model or structure. So, did Bill? Did you want to say something on this topic as well?
Yeah, just that, absolutely. Curtis has it right. It's the culture is one of those seemingly intangible things, but what the culture produces is definitely tangible and quantifiable. Um, and of course, as far as finding a fit for a right buyer for a business, then the culture would be important, as far as, oh, I'm this kind of person and this is this kind of business. So, hey, we're a good match, or we're not, but yeah, definitely, culture is one of those building blocks of the tangible, quantifiable data that
Mm,
we can get from a business.
wonderful, great. Um, David, are your wheels turning? You have a couple of other nuggets you want to drop in this conversation? So,
Well, I think you're getting the other question you were asking about. I think you were saying something. I want to clarify. So you're asking about the mission statement, right? How do you know? So you're not. The mission is somewhere we want to go. We're not there yet. We haven't achieved the mission, right?
it's
Right.
more like, if you unearth your beliefs and values, how does that relate to you as knowing thyself as a leader? And
Mm-hmm.
and one thing that Doc C mentioned about was, I'm trying to think how he tied that in, knowing thyself as a leader and your beliefs. Curtis, help me out here. So you were talking, somehow it went from that, and we tied it into um, your culture. So the direction of the conversation kind of went
well,
further
well,
deeper.
yeah, what I was saying with the culture is, of course, is that your business is driven by humans, but really it's driven by your systems. because your systems, your people have to, and that's why you have an HR. HR's helping with those systems because leadership. We develop these systems. The leadership, the CEOs, the CFOs, all these people develop these systems to be run by humans. And like Bill said, it's got to be quantifiable, and that's what happens is really when I go to evaluate a business and I look at the culture, I already know whether or not that culture is really going to be bought by the next buyer,
Okay.
or it's going to be broken down completely.
Yes. Go ahead, David.
Okay, so along the lines of the system. So here's the thing. Here's the dilemma I see. So business owners, entrepreneurs, they know in their heart they have an idea of what can be achieved. They know about themselves. They know maybe the unique things the value. You talked about this earlier, Doxy. Here's the challenge though. You may know that in yourself, but it's another thing to actually have it come to reality. What you're talking about, Doxy, a bit like to build the culture. It's like, okay, you know that this is possible, but now you have to build a team around you, like that's to say, to actually implement and make it happen. So it's one thing to know thyself, it's another thing to actually bring it to fruition into reality, right? That's a whole nother thing. There's a lot of people they know in themselves, they have great ideas, amazing things, but they don't execute on those things
Right.
because they don't know how to bring that to reality. And that's part of knowing thyself, is knowing, where do I need help, where do I need to go to, where do I talk with you, Stacy, about benefits, because I don't know how to keep my team engaged, or Bill, I've got emerging leaders here, how do I help? I don't know, I've never trained them. I know we could build this amazing organization and we could build the widgets or this or that, whatever that is in their mind. I help the same. Similarly, I help the business owners in their team, their leadership team, and their overall health. If the business owner doesn't recognize that, they're going to crash, in my experience, crash the plane, so to speak, because they're so fixated on one thing, which they actually know very well, but they're not stepping back at the larger area. So that's where the systems and other things come in, Stacy.
Right.
And we can get, this is the challenge I think a lot of business owners do, and entrepreneurs. We can know thyself, and we're actually very future oriented. We talked about this in our voice order bill in a previous podcast, but we are very future oriented, many of us. So we know that about ourselves. But
Right.
what if we're not focusing on the present, right? Not getting invoices paid, not getting, some of the things that I'm not a numbers person, right? I know that about myself. I need a bookkeeper. If
Right.
we don't do those things, we set ourselves up for failure, and unfortunately, we undermine what we really are about ourselves. It affects our impact, and people then look at us and say, well, you're not very effective, you're not really leading yourself
Right.
because you don't know where to lean on others.
Well, I think that's also where your beliefs and values, knowing thyself and where you are, because again, entrepreneurship and leadership is about growth. So at least if you know thyself and your beliefs and your values, and like you said, you've got to be able to, I don't want to say manifest, but you've got to get somehow your beliefs and values shape the your business, shape the culture of your business, shape how you deal with people, shape how this everything is related to how the systems you put in place and how it affects the overall your customer service. All of that, it bleeds into all of that. And if you don't truly understand your beliefs and your values, again, then you're going to be one of those leaders that allow your employees to come in and bring in their beliefs and values and create a culture that becomes a nightmare, that you no longer even can identify what your business looks like. And so that's what I'm hearing us all say, that again, that it's important to know thyself, but it's also important to be able to translate our values and our beliefs into something that can be that can affect our whole organization, to the point where it's something that can be identified and measurable. That's where I'm seeing Curtis is taking us there. It starts with an intangible, and at some point you've got to, as a leader, move in a direction in your business where it becomes tangible, that you can actually measure the values that you set up for your company, the beliefs that you have, that you're able to, is that what I'm hearing? That's what I'm hearing from all of us there. So,
Well, I think really knowing yourself is expressed in the three statements, if you will: the mission statement, the vision statement, and the value statement. And that's why it's so important to know what those things are, and to have them well defined. Because you mentioned about having other people come in with their values and whatnot. Well, if you don't have a clear value statement, well, then anybody can come in and you get that nightmare. But if you have a clear value statement and somebody comes in and says, my values are substantially different and I can't let go of that, then they're not going to be a good fit for your company.
exactly.
And knowing yourself, I mean, especially when it comes to a clear mission statement. I mean, the mission statement is what you are. What are you as a business? You can have a personal mission statement, who you are what you are as a person.
Right.
And but it's very important to have those things clearly defined.
Bill, can I add to that? I think knowing yourself, because this is a trap. I know I fall into as an entrepreneur, and I'd love to hear you guys say on this. Oftentimes, when you're a business owner, you know yourself, and you're going to be like, business owners, they were like, everybody is their prospect. Everybody, like, who do you serve? Well, I serve everybody. Well, that's not your niche, right?
No.
Right?
Right.
We learn, but we don't know that, like, who are uniquely designed to reach. Who is your avatar, your client? Who's that unique person that needs to hear your voice and your story? This is about knowing yourself, Stacy, and articulating it very clearly as to, and this is, I've struggled with this, and other business owners, of like, what is my hook? What is my introduction? Where's my entry point with this particular client that I can help? And I think this is where a lot of business owners get stuck if they're not really, really clear on that. Again, it's about knowing themselves and what is the tip of the spear, if you will, that you can cut into from all the noise and everything else, that your unique message, and being able to articulate that quickly and well in today's society. Go ahead, Stacy.
No, I agree with you. And I also see where Doc C was saying that you can have a mission statement, a value statement, and all that, but how do you implement that into your business? How do you permeate those values into your system and to your business? And it comes back to system.
Well, you think about it, mission statement, all those things. How many mission statements were developed in the 90s and your employees and management didn't even know what it was because it was too long? I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. And what happens, and Bill touched on this. I mean, you're not going to be a good employee if you don't know what the mission statements, the value statements, what that's all about. Better yet, what's your purpose? I mean, what is really the purpose? What is the purpose of every business owner? And it isn't to make, I don't care what anybody says. It's not to make you feel good coming to work. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to make money. And that, I wish people would just be honest.
Right.
Because if you're not making money, this feel good stuff is not going to work. So that's the first thing that needs to be talked about. Is our job is to make money. I've told you guys this before. I worked with a small auto repair shop, and they had this lengthy mission statement. It was ridiculous, and I just told them, okay, we're changing it. Our mission statement is to make payroll plus 30. That's it. And so I could go to every technician and I'd say, what's our mission statement? Make payroll plus 30. Because as you mentioned, David, they were behind on, their bills and all kinds of stuff. And if you start doing all of that, then guess what? Then your culture and everything else just goes south. So, I know I kind of went off on the tangent, but the idea is still the same. And that is, we're here to make money, but at the same time, we're here to have fun doing it. I mean, that's really what you're after, bottom line. Is to have fun doing it. And to do that, you put in checks and balances, which is really your systems, as I said before, that everybody can weave in and out of without getting in any trouble.
Very well said. I'm going to make my last point, my last question here. So, and this is kind of reviewing what we talked about maybe a couple of weeks ago. Another way to know thyself is accepting your personal traits. Okay, so how does knowing thyself and knowing your personal traits, and how is that connected? Who wants to chime in on that one?
I'll start.
I see, David. I knew you were going to say that, David, because it was right at the tip of your tongue. Go for it.
So traits, I look at them. They can go two ways. They can be, or I'll call them even superpowers. They can be positive and they can be negative. It's about how we leverage them and understand them. So I think you have to understand, number one, what are they? What are your tendencies? What are these traits? And some of them will lead you in a positive result, and other ones will be in a negative result. Now, if you better understand those and the triggers and what causes them to show up, then you can actually start to have impactful conversations and understand things. And you can have, I call, liberating statements about with others and explaining them. Here's who I am. I am not a super detail-oriented person, for example. So if I know that about myself, on certain things, some things I am. I can be a researcher all day, but certain things I'm not. So then I empower others to say, when they need something from me, for example, that's very detail oriented, I need to let them know, okay, this may be a challenge for me in a way. So if you need it, let's work through that. So they're not getting frustrated or angry, and I'm not, I'm being real about what I can actually produce and show up. So knowing the traits, super important, Stacy. And again, I would say be careful how you judge your traits, one way or the other, because you may think a trait's really, really good, and somebody else may say that's a terrible trait. I can't stand it. Understand your trait and how it relates to others is super powerful. I could definitely go deeper on that, but I want to make sure I get Bill and Doc C to chime in here.
All right, gentlemen, who's next? Who's going to chime in?
Go ahead, Bill.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's so much there. As far as knowing your traits, because a trait in and of itself is neutral, generally speaking. I mean, if you have a trait to go and kick puppies, then that's not neutral. But how you use it, how you apply it, I think is where we get into the positives and negatives of it. Anger, in your anger, do not sin. It's not that anger is bad. It's just that most of the time people use their anger to do bad things. And they don't use that energy and focus it toward the positive, toward the change that we need to, in order to prevent other people from becoming angry. At it, from being attacked or triggered, I guess is the current word of the day. I think really knowing the trait and how you apply it, I think is really where it needs to you need to look.
Okay, Doxy?
Well, I bring this back to the pattern seek. We're pattern seekers, and we actually seek out patterns of our own self, our own traits. But I think that maybe David touched a little bit about this as well, whether it's positive or negative. But I think that I look at you, Stacy, Bill, and David, and I look at the what makes you successful, or what you guys do day in and day out. And I look at your behavior, and I look at what makes you powerful or strong, or at least it appears to me that it's strong. So I look at maybe possibly those traits in you, and it might be that you're putting on a mask for all of us to see, but at the same time, it's a beautiful mask, and I admire it. And so when I look, when I talk to people and I listen, I just listen to what they have to say, because it's the listening they gave us, 2 ears instead of one mouth. But when I listen to people, I listen to what they say, because I can pick up their strengths and weaknesses just by what they say. And it's something that I actually learned a long time ago from my father. He said, just be quiet and listen. So I did, and you can learn about those things, and that's why I try to get out of my own comfort zone to discover even different traits that I want to adopt to move myself into a next level.
No, I love that. I love that.
It's funny. We came back around again to the comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something.
So to recap, that question about know thyself, and how does knowing thyself impact you as a leader? How does that influence you as a leader? I'm just going to tie it all in. I know that when a leader is in search of knowing who they are, knowing their strengths, their weaknesses, their blind spots, all of that, and if they're able to have a come to Jesus moment and just say, yes, this is who I am, and accept that that's who they are, they're able to then learn how to leverage their strengths, because David was mentioning about working in your strengths and understanding how to leverage others' strengths in the areas that are challenging for you. But the first thing as a leader that you need to understand is yourself, because leaders who don't truly understand themselves create havoc and messes in businesses, because they try to be all and do all, or they don't understand their weaknesses, and they take on more than what they are capable of doing. And so we tie all of this into beliefs and values. All of that is, I think, is essential in helping you discover yourself and your strengths and your challenges as a leader. If you know what your beliefs are, sometimes your beliefs may not serve you, but at least if you understand that, you can make a decision to adopt beliefs that are going to benefit you more. So again, all of this, tying it all to leadership, I think is very important to truly know thyself, not just in business and leadership, but just in as a person. If you're dating, if you're married, you really need to be on this constant journey of self-improvement, becoming better versions of yourself, no matter where your position is in life. And I think that this is a great topic for business, because I think a lot of times it's overlooked. It's not discussed. Leaders they've got flaws. A lot of times people have put leadership on a higher pedestal and expect them to be flawless. And so I think sometimes leaders are in a position where they don't want to accept their flaws or accept their weaknesses, because they believe it's a sign of weakness. And I say that when you truly know thyself and you're in that constant journey of knowing thyself, that it puts you in a position of strength, because now you become more powerful, more influential, not only in other people's lives, but in your life as well. So I'm going to close on that. If anybody else got something to say, bring it before we close.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, Stacy. Yeah, that was fantastic. Good closure.
Thank you all.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up tonight here. Thank you again, Doc C, Bill Hatch, Stacy, Kinesija. We will be meeting again. So let us know. Drop some comments here in the video. We'd love to hear from you. Things that key takeaways, suggestions for future topics, future episodes. We're always welcoming those. We'll have different folks in the roundtable. We didn't have Charlie Chen here tonight. He'll be back again with us. We're glad to have Bill here for the first time. So great to have these conversations. We hope it encourages you. I would say reach out to any one of us here if you've got any questions or you heard some things you want to know more about. All of us are happy to discuss that with you. And if you found this really valuable, please share it with others too. We want to get the word out there and help as many other business owners learn from what we've learned and encourage you along the way. So thanks everybody for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.